Welcome, everybody, to the season finale of The Longer Game, the podcast where we talk all about retail. I believe retail is super expansive, so that means we're talking about e-commerce, we're talking about in-store, we're talking about marketplace, we're talking about all those things. And I brought back three guests. I'm going to tell them they're my favorite because they're on here right now, and they are. But I brought back some great guests that I wanted to just bring into a larger conversation about brands and about retail and what's currently going on right now. And I think the most important thing is just how do brands continue to stay relevant in today's day and age. So I brought Caroline Grace, Sam Hager. John, say your last name for me. I should have.
No worries. It's Gargiulo. It's
Gargiulo.
Actually easy once you know it.
Okay, I should. We've been through this before, and I just did not do due diligence. So John Gargiulo. I would like each of you just to introduce us and tell us something that's important about what you do at your company. Caroline, let's start with you, and we'll go around.
Sure, happy to. Thank you so much, Michael. The first one that we did together was super, super fun. I'm Caroline. I am the founder and CEO of Product and Prosper. I operate a portfolio of companies that build, grow, and invest in product-based businesses, especially CPG, food and beverage, and wellness. My expertise is in building for retail. So what I usually do is I come in and I rebuild the foundation of a brand to scale across omni-channel retail. And retail, to me, Michael, I know we have to define it, means not just Amazon, but it also means more physical retail, in-store, chain retail, Whole Foods, that sort of thing. So super excited to chat. I think there's lots of exciting things happening across CPG right now, especially at the end of the year, and especially as we move more into trade show season. So I'm excited to see what John and Sam have to say about what's going on in 2025 and 2026.
One small thing I'll add to that is when e-commerce grew a ton, I think people forgot that most people still bought stuff in stores. Like retail is still, the actual physical retail is still so super important, although I do think it's evolving. But anyway, Sam, you please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey, Michael, good to see you, man. I'm Sam Hager, co-founder and CEO of MixShift. We are a backend for Amazon growth. We primarily work for and with agencies as our partners, as well as brands who are really looking to own their data and their processes. I'm kind of the glue guy for us. You know, I do a little bit of building, a little bit of management, see across the company. And we've been in the space for over 10 years now, had our own agencies, and really MixShift was born out of those experiences, just trying to scale our own agency and solve those data problems that we couldn't do from, just from our team internally. So that's really where we're at today. My co-founder, Todd Vanderstelt, former Amazon guy as well, was big on the hands off the wheel initiative and 1P side. We kind of call him our quant, is really the brains behind the operation and feeds us a lot of really deep understanding of how the metrics and data on Amazon work and how we can use those to not only improve performance, but optimize our operations and beyond within each of the companies that we work with.
You've also got a great face of the company too. Let's be honest. That hair is pretty killer. I'm just gonna say, I don't know that Todd could do that. Let's be honest. Let's call it.
Todd's doing pretty well for himself as well, though he does all right. He props me up, to do things such as this. But I'm happy to do it, and I love talking about this stuff. So appreciate you having me on, Michael.
Yeah, of course, man. John.
Yeah, happy to be here with all of you. I love this stuff also. I'm John Gargiulo. I'm the founder and CEO of Airpost, airpost.ai. My career has been in marketing. I'm a recovering brand guy. Went to Miami Ad School to be a copywriter. Did the Airbnb thing, ended up leading parts of marketing there here in San Francisco for a few years. Started Ready Set, which was like vertical video, paid social for D2C brand first. In a world of agencies that were mostly search first, or at least media first, and grew that quite well. And then spun Airpost out of Ready Set just about a year ago, not even. And we are leveraging people, creative strategists, and a lot of AI and 18 engineers that have built a lot of software on top of the models to go help brands get out there and get a lot of purchases online.
So thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. I didn't make you say a favorite color or what you ate for breakfast or something like that. That I still have that happen to me in circles. And it still feels a little weird doing that. I think it felt weird as kids. If someone's done it really well, maybe you could do it well. Like, what's your favorite solar system or planet? I don't know. I feel like I'm back in grade school, and I almost wanted to do that to y'all, but I did not. I think the common thing that I'm hearing, and John, maybe before we went live, you touched on this a little bit, is customer acquisition. How do people get new customers? And I think what seems to be the way that they do it may not actually be a great way to do it. And an example of that would be, I want to reach more people. And so what's the quickest and fastest way to do that? Well, it'd be to like get into a Walmart or Target and just get in front of a lot of people. Or it could honestly probably just be that. And maybe that's not the best because it's not the stickiest of strategies. And a great example of that would be in the real world. I guess we all kind of live in the real world. I live in my own fantasy land, but you all probably live in the real world. And you look at American Idol, the number of people that won that competition that went on to become big superstars, very, very small. And I think they were all really talented people. Some of the like 8th, 9th, whatever people have gone on to do really well. I'm pretty sure Carrie Underwood did not win. I think she was like 7. Did she win? I think she was like in top 10, but I don't think she won. Kelly Clarkson, I think, is the only person that has really just absolutely crushed it. And again, all really talented people. Here's my theory on why I think this did not work for them. And there's a reason why bands that or musicians that tour a bunch and have written a bunch for people and then start to build their own careers, they have to go through the like slog of, we played in this bar for 10 people. Like, they slowly build over time a following. And then, yes, it seems like they have overnight success, but they've been building something for a very long period of time. And they've got stickiness with this crowd, this group of people. And then when they get really big, they've got all this, additional people out there. But maybe when they don't have such a great hit, they've got these fans that are still around, that are still kind of pushing them forward. I know I'm a big Prince fan, and Prince said stuff about that. Like, hey, I knew that some of these people weren't going to be around forever. That to me feels like it's probably a better approach of acquiring someone. Now, that could be direct to consumer, that could be in a smaller retail. I don't know. That's just what I'm hearing as a theme. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think what the people that we see that have been successful, and we've been working with a lot of mostly larger D2C brands. Airpost customers typically spend 500K, $1 million or more a month on Meta ads. For example, DoorDash, Dr. Squatch are a couple of our clients, but even down the chain to protein powders and supplement brands and things like that, they're everywhere. It's not a one prong approach. I can't tell you how many clients in the last 5-6 years across Ready, Set, and Airpost have excitedly told me, well, first in 2019-20, they excitedly told me, oh, we're never going to do stores. Like, that's the old days. Like, it's now Facebook, and we just make so much money no matter how much we spend. That all ended in 2022. And then they got excited saying, oh, we got into Target. It's funny, Michael, you made it sound really easy. And of course it's not, but like getting wholesale distribution in incredibly competitive shelf space. And nowadays, last 2 years, I mean, more than that, of course, but a lot of people that weren't are like, Amazon's now our fastest growing channel. It's absolutely crushing it. You see the macro numbers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas 5 years ago, there were definitely people that were just killing it with one prong. Now you got to have at least 3 if you're going to be big.
Love that. Caroline, what about you?
I mean, I agree with John. I think you have to build to be everywhere because discoverability is everywhere. And so these single channel brands usually only work when they have a singular product that they're distributing, for example, like through paid ads, but you're going to hit a revenue cap at a certain point because single product, single channel. That said, I think, John, you see the big guys, you see them already in the stores. There's a lot of steps that go along the way to get to that level where they're everywhere. And I think a lot of those pieces have to be these micro tests in smaller channels. So micro tests, for example, on D2C, through paid ads, through social. I'm finding TikTok Shop to be a massive micro testable channel right now. I don't know if you guys have explored this with some of your brands or some of your companies. And then also, I love retail. I love independent retail, especially before you get into things like Target. Independent retail is going to show you how to maintain relationships and build loyalty over time with retail accounts and retail buyers. And once you get into Target, Michael, to go back to your customer acquisition, just getting into a big retailer isn't going to necessarily derive discoverability. It's the placement around that retailer. Is that person going into Target, going into Walmart, and then also seeing you at the store next door, at the coffee shop next door, that sort of thing. So it's multi-channel placement to get top of mind across all of these different channels is ultimately what's driving larger retention across and discoverability and customer acquisition.
If you think about sales, what do people say? Like there's 8, 9 touch points that you have to have. And I don't know what the stat would be for a brand, but people talk about brand awareness and it feels like this very ethereal thing, but in a really basic way, brand awareness is just being more in the conversation with people, like showing up more where they're at. So if they see you an independent retailer, if they also happen to see you on Target or on Target shelves, where also do you think they're going to go? Well, they don't know anything about your brand. They're probably going to go, if they're really ready to purchase, they might go to Amazon and look you up. They may go to social. Maybe they're on TikTok and like, oh, I'm on here and I'm in the store. And so I'm seeing them. Let me see if I can find this brand here. But that brand awareness is just being a part of the conversation, being involved more. And because people are not having a linear journey for shopping anymore, like I might go buy something in store or I might buy something on Amazon because I'm like, man, I'm gonna have a really busy 2 days and I don't want to go to the store or whatever. Or maybe I'm like, hey, I'm passing a store. I need to get something and I want it right now. I need it today. So I'll go and do that. And sometimes price is not even what drives people. Literally is just convenience. And the quick story I have is I have been making my own bitters. It takes like 3.5 weeks to do. It's a very long process. It's fun. And I make great cocktails at home. If any of you guys are in Cincinnati, you're welcome to come to my house. And I promise you'll be taken care of. And it's fun to entertain people that way. I, of course, enjoy it as well, too. My wife always has great drinks, so she never goes without. But in that process, I was like, I need more mason jars. So what did I do? I just ordered some on Amazon. My wife very intelligently was like, you should just go to Walmart. They're going to be cheaper there. And I was like, oh, okay. And I looked it up and it was actually way cheaper and I was getting more for what I was getting. And so I ended up doing that on top of it because I still needed more. And I was like, yeah, why didn't I think to do that? I was thinking convenience, but if anything, I lived down the street from Walmart, so I could have gone there like very, very soon. So like, again, the what I needed came down to convenience, but also later when I did a little bit more investigation, price did come into the factoring, but Walmart honestly probably was the easier answer. But again, there's like multiple places that people can touch on to go and find something. Why wouldn't you want to show up in those places?
Yeah, what I would add, Michael, too, is like, it's not just about being available in each of those places. It's the multiplying effect of having validity of being in those places and being present. So when we talk about awareness, it's like, you mentioned Mason, that's like the Kleenex of jars, right? Like everybody knows Mason jars. But the cost for them to acquire you as a new customer, I would argue, was much less because of their presence in other channels, right? Because of their dominance and credence and history and recognition beyond. We think a lot, we're very specifically focused on Amazon, but we think a lot about what is the true cost to acquire a new customer, but not just acquire that customer one time. What does that actually mean to you to build that repeat base over time? You talked about the slog the artists make, right? By touring and by being out there. It's like doing sampling at Costco, right? Like if somebody tastes you and tries you and you're awesome, they're going to become a loyal fan. What's beautiful about that is you don't have to have one-hit wonders. You can quite literally rely on that customer base to be a consistent, not only like revenue but cash flow for you that allows you to do all the other things, right? And so we think a lot about how to forecast revenue based on your cost to acquire a new customer, which is a model that Todd's working on right now, but also what those customers become to you over time. Do they reconvert within 3 months or 12 months? What's that pattern look like? And how does that give us predictability around our revenue? Maybe even potentially allowing us to make bigger bets on innovation within our product lines, because we know we can rely on that repeat base, right? So I think that's maybe one of just those really hidden and powerful effects of being present in other places, is having validity, so that when they land on an Amazon page, you've already got those impressions and you already have that understanding on your mind, and you're not having to pay that multiple, that unknown brands have to pay. I know, Michael, you as an agency, right? Who do you like to work with? Right? It's folks that are investing in their brand.
Yeah.
It's people
it's
that
never
are
profitable from the get-go. I sell myself out of so many projects because I'm like, just so you know, it's not going to be profitable. And people want it to be profitable in there. And then they're like, oh, we're totally good to grow. And I'm trying to ground them in the reality of like, it will be negative cash for a while. Like, you're going to be putting money into it. And I try to be as clear as possible. And they're looking at revenue thinking that equates to money in your bank account. And it just does not. And as a business owner, I know that all too well when times are not profitable. Like, it can be painful. So I want you to be clear on that. And I don't want to just tell you we're going to 10x things and blow your shit up. And maybe we do, but it costs a lot of money to do that.
And even if you get there, we both know, having seen tons of accounts, and you guys, Caroline, John, you guys know this as well, is like, it's pretty rare that a brand's going to be successful on a single channel if they're not doing things in other channels. You've got to have somebody working in parallel to you to be successful in the channels that you're managing.
That feels more true now, I think, than ever. I felt like it used to be like that for beauty brands. They needed additional stuff outside. And now I feel like it really is for any brand that's not just selling a overly commoditized product and is competing on price, or like on an Amazon, just a very generic brand. Like, I feel like you really do that. That is so true. You have to be present in other channels because of how discoverability works.
Yeah. And that diversification is just so important too. Like, I think you're just so exposed when you don't have multiple lines of revenue, but you also have to consider it from an inventory risk standpoint as well. If you're 90% dependent on Amazon from a fulfillment and from a sales standpoint, if something goes wrong there, or if the economics just start not to make sense, you have very little ability to adapt and pivot quickly. And I think we saw that obviously this year with tariffs and everything that was going on. A lot of sellers who were too heavy in a single channel really struggled and will continue to struggle, right? I'd be curious, Caroline, just to hear from the TikTok standpoint. I don't know as much about TikTok, and I haven't sold as much on there. What have you seen as far as brands? Like, we know they can blow up really quickly. Who are the ones that are successful beyond that first hit? Like, what happens? What's the plan?
Really interesting question. It's actually a heavily promotional channel. So the way that I would think about it is the brands that are ultimately highly successful. And again, bear with me. I'm not a TikTok shop expert. I've just been exploring it myself. The ones that are most successful are the ones that are kind of treating it like QVC. So they're doing multiple promotions through paid ads, through UGC and affiliate content creators, and then also on their own channel. So that it's interesting, Michael, you said that mason jars were cheapest on Walmart. That's actually not true anymore. They're always going to be cheapest on TikTok Shop because the amount of discounts that brands are running there. So it's kind of,
it doesn't help me if I don't have TikTok, right? Though I kind of have to have TikTok. And I just out myself as being very old.
You got to download it, I think.
I'm in a totally different generation. I was actually telling some friends last night that I was talking to the new youth pastor at my church where my daughter goes. And this guy is moving to a different campus. And he was describing me to this new leader and was like, yeah, this is Michael. He's a really involved dad around here. And I was like, whoa, I'm like and I'm totally cool with it, but I'm like, I'm the dad guy to this person who's in his 20s. And I'm like, don't care how old I am. And I'm like, it feels a little surreal. But yeah, I guess I do have to download the app.
There's a lot of dads making lots of money on TikTok. There's like dad influencers everywhere. So I think you could still download it and still be a fit.
We'll see. We'll see.
One thing I want to go back to is brand awareness. I think it's such a big keyword, but the question is, how do you build brand awareness? To go back to Kelly Clarkson and like Chappelle Rowan and Sabrina Carpenter, how did they like start building brand awareness? Because they're massive now. How do they go through some of that? And it always starts on these like little micro tested channel things. When it comes to building brand awareness, one of the things I do want to just mention is it's not an overnight thing. I think we throw brand awareness out so much and it can feel daunting. And really it does take 3, 5, 10 years, unless you have a celebrity co-founder with pre-existing credibility to actually truly build brand awareness.
When they've already built brand awareness because of them as a
Exactly.
as a celebrity.
It's a fast track. It's a fast track if you partner really early on with a celebrity co-founder. Look at Khloe Kardashian with Cloud, the protein popcorn. But brand awareness really starts, in my opinion, with building in multi-layered brand stories. So for example, early stage brand awareness usually can come down to category level innovation, and then also layered on top of that, a founder's personal brand and cultural story. So early traction can really come from those things. I mean, obviously there's many different strategies depending on the category, but those are the things that are going to be sticky from the get-go, especially with early stage retail buyers. Those are the stories that they're looking to attach to. Then you get to stages like Dr. Squatch, where they just own the entire category. They don't really need stories like that to get them to the next level. It's really about maintaining distribution and expanding the cart of distribution when a customer purchases at retail and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and another thing that can help brand awareness is low funnel performance marketing. I really do think it's all of a piece. So like, now we see AG1 commercials and all that stuff, but the first few years of that company, I remember presenting at a conference and asking how many people had heard of AG1, and like 60% of hands went up. And at that time, they didn't do any brand advertising. They were just all over your Facebook feed. They were one of the top 5 spenders on Facebook. So one thing I'm noticing about the literally age-old sort of performance versus brand discussion, or is it the same thing, et cetera, is the low funnel performance-y stuff can really help people hear of the brand.
Yeah, we actually were one of the first agencies to work with AG1 on Amazon. This was back in like 2016. So talking about low funnel, like they were there early. It's not overnight. Now they can afford Rogan, a spot on Rogan, right? But like,
yeah, I almost wonder exactly if it happens kind of backwards, like that, Sam, where it's like, oh, now we have so much money. Like I was saying to my kids last night, actually watching these Amazon commercials after Amazon commercials, and I said, I remember when Amazon didn't run any commercials. They were very proud, along with Starbucks, which also I'm sure runs tons of commercials now. This was like first 10, 15 years of that company. They were very proud to run 0 commercials, Tesla, et cetera. And now they're just and I assume it's just because they're looking at their balance sheet and they're like, well, we have these like hundreds of billions of dollars sitting around. It's going to cost us like $100 million to blanket TV. Let's just do it for fun.
Dr. Squatch, Sydney Sweeney collab, right? Case in point.
There you go.
They're big enough now where now like you're going to a different level, and there's different money involved at that point. And you have
it's credibility, that gives them like Sydney Sweeney level credibility. Funny phrase to say, but like, I think that's one word that's not come up a lot in this call so far, is like brand awareness. Brand is also just about like trust, particularly like we work with a lot of GLP-1 companies. Hims and Hers has been a client forever. Seeing something more, like take the extreme example of, if you got billboards in your town, here they're all AI companies. And if some company buys 10 billboards, it doesn't mean they're a better company per se. But at least if somebody asks me, what AI software you want to use, I use X, Y, and Z. If I've seen 10 billboards for X, it is
probably
in my head
more. Yeah,
maybe trust them a little more, which is a weird concept, but it's really true. It may not be ROI positive, but it is true.
One of the things to John, I was just going to say, Michael, at that level, once you are you're trying to shape the perception of a brand at that level, which is a very different, very different
Yeah.
type of objective than, hey, I need to acquire customers and raise awareness. Right now, I'm shaping a narrative about who we are. Like you associate with somebody like Sydney Sweeney, you're going for a younger audience that maybe hasn't been introduced to to Squatch before. Right. And now there's a reframing of that product in people's minds just because of the association.
Or maybe you're just trying to get a certain demographics attention when they're 100%. Watching the TV.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And then this is why I have to point out the big asterisk that there's a big part of how we think of a brand credibility, how we think of a product that has nothing to do with the TV ads or the Facebook ads. It's like, what does the company do? I never forget a friend of mine from my brand advertising days, super talented chief creative officer in brand world. When I joined Airbnb, he's like, I don't use Airbnb because of their TV commercials. Even myself, when I got there, they ran 9 figures a year in TV. I'd never seen an Airbnb commercial. He said it's because in that case there was a big brouhaha in Charlottesville. They kicked out all these white supremacists. He's like, that's why I use them, because of the action that they took, because of the culture that they have. Of course, not every supplement brand has an Airbnb, famous culture, but yeah, what they do, how good the product is, things that are out of any of our control, obviously matter.
One of the things that I loved, Caroline, when you came on the show is you were so specific about defining things. And I truly believe that specificity of speech matters. Like the words that we say are important, so much so that even with my team, someone's like, oh, I didn't have time to do that. I'm like, let's break that down. You didn't have time, or it's not something that you prioritize. Like we all have the same amount of time in the day or the time to do stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, I didn't prioritize it. It's like, okay, was it a priority? Yes. Then I should have done that instead of this other thing that I did. So I love that. And I think talking about brand awareness feels like it could be a buzzword. Like you need to build brand awareness, but like that helps brands zero. There's nothing tactical there. And I love what you said about brand awareness. Well, and like even John, to your point, like brand awareness can start low. It doesn't have to be. I think a lot of times we think brand awareness and we think just blasting stuff on TV, but brand awareness is getting into the conversation. And how do you get in the conversation and then stay there? Because just getting awareness, I think one of the things that has probably not worked for some brands on TikTok is buying that audience temporarily for 30 days or whatever when they're promoting something, and then it kind of falls off after that, unless you're continuing to build that or doing something to capture those people when they go to your direct to consumer site, once they're discovering you on TikTok, and then going, are you getting more information? Are you keeping them around, putting them on your email list, or however you're marketing towards them, but staying in the conversation? And I was thinking about what you said, like product innovation, like our brand story, we're building awareness for our brand. Our brand story is like that we are an innovator in this thing, or it's we just do this thing better than other people. But also, I think people, John, when you came on, we talked about people wanting to, like founders, those people are the ones that should be speaking for companies, not companies necessarily themselves, because people want to hear from that. That's relatable. And I think that's also partially why the celebrities work. It's not just because they're famous, but they can like relate back to, oh, I saw this person in this movie, and like I have a level of familiarity with them, even though you never have met them in real life. And that familiarity is what breeds trust in that situation. But it's that the founders are the ones that should be telling what's going on. And that's why we see more people telling their stories and just being who they are. And here's what I'm into. And that attracts people or it repels them, but they know very clearly who that person is. And that's still brand awareness, whether someone likes it or not.
There's so many
awareness.
100%. There's so many examples of that. I mean, founder-led ads work really well to this day on Meta, TikTok. You go all the way back to like the Dollar Shave Club, like launch video, the guy walking through the factory. There's a very specific point of view and like, vibe, and it worked for that audience. But I totally agree. Like people want to know the founder, and then algorithmically, like whether it's LinkedIn or anywhere, company pages are dead. They really don't show up anywhere, even if you spend behind them. So it's really about the founders representing the companies, and it's also good because you feel like there's a lot of them out there. But if you actually look at your category, and you look at, all right, here's my top 10 competitors, 20 competitors. How many of their founders, CEOs are on TikTok talking about their day, going to the warehouse? Like it's probably 5%. of them. So it's a really good opportunity still. I wonder if in 10 years it'll be like, no, you can't found a company without being a public person.
I mean, it's why we're here on your podcast, Michael, right? I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't say.
There you go.
Yeah, got to show up, right? Somewhere.
Yeah.
Michael, I'm actually so glad that we've bridged this conversation. Little preview plug. One of the things that I'm building right now is a personal branding agency for product-based founders, because it is truly my hypothesis of how brands are able to differentiate within the market really early on. And it also enables the founder to have a launch pad to whatever else they want in their life and in their career.
I love that aspect of it, because eventually they're probably going to want to sell or move on or do something. So
yeah, but I think when we look at there's a couple different kinds of product-based founders, right? Who show up in their personal brand. There's the traditional Instagram influencer founder. There's the YouTube founder. There's the TikTok founder. Then there's the LinkedIn founder, which is an entirely different industry's perspective on CPG. But regardless, I do think when it comes to why is this working right now? Because categories are so saturated with products, fragmentation occurs within the categories. And one way to deviate away from the product-based differentiators is to go by the person and to bring in the person and the founder into the conversation, because then that becomes the defensible differentiator when it comes to the category-based level, right? Now we're not looking at, my cereal versus your cereal. We're looking at cereal connected to me as a person versus random cereal brand who doesn't have a face tied to the brand. That's why characters worked so well for Kellogg's and that sort of thing in the early days, but we're beyond characters now because of the amount of social media and the amount of storytelling that's happening right now in the marketplace. So I think we're at a massive pivot when it comes to personal brands connected with product-based brands. And that's my next hypothesis is really, I think that we're going to see the acceleration of these product-based businesses tied to more founder faces.
I did not set this up, by the way. I had no idea that Caroline was even doing that. That's just how good we are at talking as the four of us. Just naturally leads to the things that people want to promote. I have a question. Do you think that, so we're beyond characters, which I think makes sense. I think in maybe a specific instance, it could work, but that's a great tie back of like putting a face to a brand like Tony the Tiger. He's not real, but we relate to Tony the Tiger and we know what his catchphrase is. And I can like taste Frosted Flakes when I see him because I know who he is. And even people who, even like my daughter, I think would know who Tony the Tiger is. So it's like it's a character that people will remember.
So you're saying every founder should have a taste.
Every founder should have a taste. Mine is broccoli. It's not a good one, but I'm thinking of switching. Wholesome. Yeah. Yes. I am curious. Do you think, because there's like a cartoon character is easy to trust or not trust. And also they're like kind of adorable, even if they're a little, out there. I feel like cartoons it's like fun. It makes you think of maybe watching them on Saturday mornings or whatever. As we move forward in social media, as we move forward in technology, is it possible that we could do that again, but with generative AI people? Because it feels like the answer could be no very clearly. And I think I know why, but also I think it could also be possible that would work.
You mean the Tony the Tiger or the people, the creators? Yeah, I think
this is my founder or my character, and it's not a real person, but it's like their avatar essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you see stuff popping up, right? Like these Instagram influencers, quote unquote, that are not real people, posting about their life, getting paid a lot by brands. It's still a very niche thing. I think a couple of things. One, all that's getting better and better and better. We just had GBT's third birthday. We all remember Will Smith eating spaghetti, just a couple of years ago was a joke that people forwarded around, was a meme. And now it's like, if you try to prompt that, it's really damn accurate, but it's still not 100%. It's gone from, 48% good to 91% good. In a few years, it's going to be And then what happens? I think that's the most interesting conversation for me. It's not where we are now, and it's very easy to fall into like, oh, but look at this, look at that, authenticity. But like, forget that. Where are we going to be in a few years, which will rush by? You could do that. I don't think people even then want to hear from a fake founder or even a fake spokesperson. Maybe in the distant future. There's a lot of avenues. One, you are the founder themselves, where they make a lot more content with AI. Even that makes me a little skeeved out. Um, but in general, one thing is that people do jump to AI people. Like this whole part of the conversation, we've probably all been picturing the talking head at the camera that's not quite right in 2025. There's a lot more you can do with AI outside of the characters, right?
True.
Ideation, production, post-production, different creators. Maybe you only see the person. Now I'm getting into promoting Airpost, but like maybe you only see the like really good-looking like creator type that you assume the voiceover you hear is his or her voice for 4 seconds. Say some wild line to the camera, like I was doing, pillows all wrong, and then you hear her voice continue, and you see different shots of the product, like. I think that's a lot of the usefulness is a lot of the grittier stuff than just the talking head thing. And actually, Sora have taken us away from conversations around synthesia and Heygen into like, oh, they don't just have to stare at the camera and talk from a desk. Like they could be surfing and talking to me or whatever.
I think John, you bring up a really good point. AI ultimately is just a tool. It's not at the point of like replacement yet. And that's been a massive part of the AI conversation. That said, I think we will start seeing more AI front facing sort of companies. Even if you start looking at more like Chinese manufacturers, a lot of the about pages are AI generated teams, which is really interesting. But I think it still comes back to the premise of the story behind that AI generation, even if the front facing person or character is AI generated and AI represented, it still comes back to the storyline behind it. It will work if there is a really strong story. Think about
Right.
Tony the Tiger, right? Think about, I don't know, like Kim Kardashian, right? They all have stories that are surrounding them. So AI is just a tool if it's equipped, and it will work if it's equipped with the right storyline around it.
I actually think that why something like Tony the Tiger would work and not an AI-led founder would work is because we are very clear that a cartoon character is not real. And if you all do not know that, I'm sorry to have to burst your bubble on this show. But we know that cartoon characters aren't real. Like it's very clear from the get-go. No one has to say that. We know that the human is real. We know that Kim Kardashian is, well, mostly real. She's a real person. Let's just say that. So like we're very, very clear on that. When a generative AI, that was a cheap shot, but whatever. Generative AI, we know if it's trying to imposter or is acting like a real human, but is not, that to me feels like the lack of trust that would cause people to not want to get onto it, to not participate with that brand. And to be fair, I agree with both you, John, and Caroline, that AI is a great tool. I think people think about it as like this replacement thing. And it's like, man, you can just be so much more productive and do a lot more. And that's where I think a lot of the innovation can be helpful. How do I incorporate this into my day to just be more powerful and leverage my brain power more? Sam and I were both just at the Amazon Unbox, which is like their ad summit. And I think it was the CEO of Anthropic was talking about how he and people are leveraging Claude. And he's like, there are people, like really smart people that are using it to tackle really big problems. They're taking their knowledge and like, hey, how do I work through this? It's not like create a thing for me, do the thing, do all the stuff. It's like, how do I kind of amplify what I'm doing? And so that's what like amplifying productivity is basically what we're talking about there. But if you're very clear that, hey, this is a generative AI person, this is like you're entering in the conversation with that and people are walking into it with that to me feels like it could be possible. Whether it happens or not, I don't even think that matters. But like, is that a possibility? And I think if we're clear up front that this is not a real person, then people know they're already like either they're in or they're out. But if they're in, they're a little bit more clear. You're not going to lose them because it's a fake person. Maybe they just don't like the story. They don't like the brand.
We're definitely crossing that Rubicon right now where it's like regulation's not there yet. Probably we'll see some big old, this is an AI person that everyone has to put on their ads.
Right. Like, hey, this is a paid ad. Like the people
Right.
do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You're also seeing this. I talked to people, just talking to some brand the other day. They're like, well, this ad's working really well, but it's very obviously AI. Like we're still in a place where like obvious AI, I don't know what that looks like. And that can be fun. But the real AI is the 91%. And most people who have played with it, even the image and Nano Banana stuff, they freak out. Bigger brands, they get a lot of comments. Wait, I see this is AI. Oh yeah, it is. This brand sucks. Like they got to be careful about that. So we're crossing this weird fuzzy zone. But I think again, the more interesting conversation is like, okay, but what happens in a couple of years when it's impossible to tell the difference?
Yeah, I just wonder. I mean, we're on the very front end of a very long tail. Like it's very difficult to see out. I think what's immediately in front of us, and that's apparent, is one, AI is right now a multiplier for specific knowledge, right? If you have specific knowledge and expertise, it is a multiplier to do more, faster, better, and build on that knowledge. To your point, Caroline, I think it's really interesting about like the story behind, because I do worry. I mean, we're seeing entire books written by AI. Now, I just don't know that we're ultimately going to be able to differentiate between a real story and a fabricated one, because you can build so much depth of character, of persona, of all these things, right, over time. However, I always believe in an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if the whole point of marketing is to stand out and differentiate, if we see Michael, you mentioned like, can we actually differentiate between an AI ad or otherwise? John, I agree. I think there's going to be some like watermarking type of legislation somewhere down the road where it has to be identified. And there will be different reasons for why it has to be identified. Claims, authenticity aside. But if the consumer is conditioned to just not care whether or not it is AI or a real person, I think there is a period where it's going to be very much indistinguishable. And I don't think people are really going to care for a short period of time, potentially. And the question always becomes, as marketers and as brand leaders, we ask ourselves, well, how do we differentiate, right? How do we differentiate from Chinese manufacturers being able to literally take an entire brand story from something that's worked and replicate that through systems, right? And I think that's where the edge always continues, the bleeding edge always continues to be opportunity, is like, okay, what is everybody else doing? And now what is now possible, right? It will constantly evolve. To your point, John, like, I don't know, who knows? But I really do fear that we are not going to be able to differentiate, and it's not that far out in the future, and the consumer won't really care in a for a period of time, but there will be an equal and opposite reaction. I just don't know what that is necessarily.
I think that's the thing that stands out to me the most is if the consumer has the expectation that it's not real, is it a moot point? Like, does it matter anymore? I don't really know. I think people still are fearful of things that they don't know. Like, I think a lot of people think AI is going to turn into, like, I don't know if you guys saw that movie Ex Machina, wild movie, but it was like crazy because that's what everyone is fearful of. And I think it's probably less like that. We just have a tendency to, when new things pop up, we think it's the end of the world. And I always like to go back to something like the Industrial Revolution, because did a lot of people lose jobs? Yes. Were there a lot more jobs created and a lot more opportunities? And do we advance as a society as we started to adopt that new technology? Absolutely. And I think there's a period of time we have to go through to understand that. Just like Sam said, we can't predict. And someone I heard say that in this world of AI, which has technically been around, since the 60s, it's just really amped up in this generative space, that we're like in the bag phone era. If you look at like where cell phones are now, like we're in the bag phone era of AI, which feels crazy to say because it's so opposite from a tech standpoint, but that feels like it's hard to look into the future. But if we set expectations for people, will it even matter?
Yeah,
I
we'll
don't
see.
know.
It's very, very hard to predict. It is true. Like the smartest people that I respect out there in the world are the ones that are shrugging their shoulders the most.
Yeah.
We're just all riding it.
The CEO of Anthropic, by the way, Carolyn, before you say something, he was talking about the commercial that they put out for Claude, which Claude could have helped them with. And he's like, it was all analog. Like we were intentional about actually filming that stuff. So I feel like humans aren't at their core going to change. We're still going to need human to human interaction. Like AI will not ever feed that. I really don't believe so.
Question, Michael, Caroline, of the brands that you guys work with, I know John, Airpost, huge piece of this, right? Of how you put these things together authentically and how you leverage, get more out of your teams. Michael, do you have brands, or Caroline, do you have brands that are like, don't use AI? Don't, like, it goes against our ethos, or like, we don't want you to use Amazon's AI creative studio because the aesthetic isn't right and we don't want to be perceived as such? Like, are you getting that request at all yet? I'm just curious.
Caroline?
Not from my end, no. And I think that's a bit of a red flag from a client perspective. If they say don't use AI, honestly, because I think you can't innovate fast enough and you can't produce fast enough to keep up without AI anymore.
Maybe let me modify the question.
Yeah.
To use AI to generate material or content, presenting people,
like of the product or of a person, or
So very, very like specific example. Amazon's AI Studio takes your photos and animates them, but does it often in a way that feels like it's still pretty glossed, and it's like it's what John does over at Airpost is like 100x better.
I don't know. I use Creative Agent, and I animated I took an ad I took a photo from a Philips Sonicare toothbrush that had Kate McKinnon in it, and I asked it to put her in an ugly Christmas sweater, which it also said, by the way, we can't do that because it might involve something offensive. And I was like, okay, put her in a really weird looking sweater. And then it said back, great, we'll put her in a really ugly Christmas sweater. And I was like, that's what I just said. But the ad then I got it to be a Christmas ad. And then I had it animate her, and it was a little like weird, but it was I was impressed.
Sam, it's a really good question. I think 3 months ago, there would have been clients who said, don't use that AI image or that video generation or something like that. But actually, and John, you can probably speak more to this tool specifically, but with Nano Banana 3, I mean, it's indistinguishable at this point, especially when it comes to product imagery, where a lot of the time the product imagery is better than the photo. So I think we're just hitting a pivot point in brands saying yes or no to AI image generation.
Yeah, it's true about image generation. It's gotten way better. I have got 2 different friends with small agencies that do almost exclusively AI image generation. One of them works with a huge brand that we've already talked about on the show. The other is a lot of smaller D2C brands. And, the huge brand always has 7 or 9 revisions that they Slack back and forth. But it is really, really good. And it doesn't screw up the words on the bottle anymore. Again, It's getting good so quickly. And the number one value proposition of this that I keep hearing is not cost savings, it's speed. It's, we need to get something up now on Amazon, on TikTok Shop, on Meta. And we can have it in a day instead of 4 weeks, send it to a creator, have them do this thing, take this picture this way. That's turns out to be very valuable for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
I do want to just go back to that equal and opposite reaction, because I think
is this the thing that you were going to say? This is the thing you were going to say.
This is what I was going to say.
Okay,
yeah, 2 things on that. One is I think the more maximalist and the more in professional the quality of generative AI is, I actually think that the more simplistic the types of ads and content and video and et cetera will become that performs. For example, I know, John, again, I don't work in paid ads, so I don't know everything, but I do know some of the best performing content is usually some of the like white background, black text, right? That's really interesting. That's an equal and opposite reaction. The other equal and opposite reaction I was going to mention is I'm curious to see, as sort of imagery especially improves, what does the expectation of the product experience, what happens to that? Is there a higher expectation of the product experience that then can't be matched by the reality of the product, right? And what happens when that affects loyalty and retention over time? That's like way down the road, but we will hit a point where manufacturing and physical manufacturing can't keep up to the expectation visually that's set by AI generation.
Still have to have a good product. Yeah. Sorry, John, I cut you off.
No, I hadn't thought of that. That's interesting. Yeah, AI gets so good and beautiful, and you get the product, and you're like, womp womp.
Wasn't that kind of like
you still have to have a great product.
The Instagram filter thing where people were like, oh, someone's like over filtering themselves. And it's like, that is not what that person looks like in real life. But then that's also, I think, why user generated content can work better in some cases than a brand produced ad, because it's not a brand talking to people. They want to hear from a person, and it's more relatable. And it's like, oh yeah, I can totally see myself in that ad versus something where a Sydney Sweeney style ad may fall flat. She's not the avatar, obviously, but where it could fall flat is like, it's not relatable. It's not something that I can see myself in. I want to see someone that looks like me, or someone who is actually facing my same challenges and is using this product, and it's really working for them. So I think there could be a lack of relatability that could cause it to fail.
Yeah, well, the inputs matter. Go ahead, right? The inputs matter, like the brand guidelines, what you're giving that system. It's garbage in, garbage out. It's, if you give it high quality instruction and you're very clear as a brand who you are, what you stand for, what those literally down into those granular level details around messaging. You talked about concise language, right, Michael? Like, really good example where even if you've chatted with GPT and they give you summaries back, it always sounds like GPT. You can tune it all you want, but it's very hard to get it to really reflect your cadence and voice and those things. I think that's some of where the magic can really happen right now, is really defining for those systems what you are trying to accomplish with those guidelines.
I saw a short clip, because I think we talked about setting expectations, or I brought that up, and what just becomes acceptable in the norm, it's hard to know or say. And anyway, I saw this short clip, and it was this woman talking about how a husband had been with his wife, had been like acting distant for, I don't know, a couple months. And he sat her down and said, hey, I want to, and honestly, I don't know if this story is true or not, but I think it's still a great anecdote. I want to open up our relationship to like a third person. And she was like, what? Like, this is, crazy. And he's like, yeah, I want to open it up. Like, I have an AI girlfriend and I want to open it up to her. And she laughed, and he was dead serious. And he said, yeah, I even talked to her about how to bring this up to you in a conversation. And so now I've like been prepped for this. And I was like, that just went like 3 extra levels. Because not only is he trusting this, it's not a real person, but he has a relationship with this person. Anyone seen Her?
Yeah.
The movie Her?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was wild. But it was a great movie. So it was like that, essentially. And then he is trusting this generative person to now have conversations with his wife, who he has a human to human. We talk about business to consumer, but human to human versus human to AI. Like, that could be a whole pathway. Like, who's your avatar? Oh yeah, we're H to A, not H to H anymore. That's so 2010. That to me felt like a change in expectation of like, what is something that we will find acceptable and something we will not find acceptable. Can I listen to a founder that's fake if I know they're fake and be okay with that because I resonate with the story, because it could be anybody's story and I like the product and there's product innovation. Sure. Will I be acceptable to actually have a relationship with generative AI?
Oh, it's happening. I mean, whether it's acceptable or not, like it's happening for sure. I've done some research on this actually, and it really becomes interesting because these tools are trained on the entire body of scientific research, right? They can literally form themselves to your psychology.
Yeah.
That's the scary piece. Now, and what we're asked for to do at marketing at scale is to understand the psychology of different folks across different demographics or perception of a product and how it relates to a culture. You know, I think in some ways that is actually really cool because I think you can start to relate to people that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And you have this at your fingertips if you know how to harness it. Not to say you're trying to fabricate a relationship with them, but maybe there's an ability to build a bridge that wasn't there before. I think that in some ways is a really cool application. However, a relationship with an AI is a whole different can of worms, Michael, that probably a different podcast.
I hadn't thought of that relatability thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You know, one thing with creative strategists that can be tough is, I remember we had, it was kids bikes, one of the big kids bikes brands. We had a creative strategist on the account who didn't have kids. And I don't know, I thought the CEO of the kids bikes brand was a little too focused on this, but we're good. But he was convinced that the ads didn't quite fit because they didn't really speak to a parent, which I understand as a parent. But, you know, being able as a creative to take this use case to speak to 70 somethings who are struggling with the loss of, mobility, it's probably pretty hard if you're, 4 years out of school. But AI, like you said, really understands those folks maybe better than most. So that's an interesting use of it.
Well, I think
Maybe
this is in large part why LLMs, or at least in some part, why LLMs were very early heavily trained on data sources like Reddit. Because you were getting into details of true interactions and thoughts and conversations unfiltered, right? And so you were so much closer to the source of what was true for people, of how they were acting. Now, what those other data sources become, and you've seen different things about where the data comes from for these LLMs. I just think that is really interesting at scale. To your point, John, like very specific groups of people, you can much more quickly understand the challenges and the realities of their lives. I think that does open up some really, really cool pathways for folks and product.
Relatability is something that we would normally have by just being exposed to that person. Someone kind of like, tell me about your culture, tell me what they're like. What is
We're losing you, Michael.
Yeah, we're cutting out a little bit, Michael.
But basically, you're hoping with human interaction is what gives you the understanding of that person. So I love that it's not everything is dystopian, which is like the picture I painted, with that AI relationship. Really, it could just be, hey, this tool actually helps me to get to know my neighbor better or this other person better, and I can relate to them more. And maybe like I don't know sports very well, but my neighbor's a big Michigan fan, hates Ohio State. How do I relate to him more? Well, like here's a couple stats and here's some things you can know. I could go into that conversation and be way more prepared. And I think that maybe that could be more of the direction that we're headed, is like, again, how do I help this to leverage me to be a better human versus, I think we all like focusing on the dystopian stuff, but like the reality is it's probably not that way. I mean, it sounds like Sam might be in a couple communities online that we'll talk about on that other podcast, but but like the reality is it's actually going to help us to just be better at us being us.
I hope so.
I think that is always true, Michael, right? I think if it bleeds, it leads. And that's why we hear the dystopian. This is a lot of what gets talked about. But in every revolution along the way, there were unintended consequences that we couldn't possibly have foreseen. Now, our interpretation of them is of good or bad is where we make meaning, but ultimately there have been some great things that have come out of different technological innovations and otherwise. There are certainly going to be side effects. There are certainly going to be negative consequences. But whenever I hear a lot of the negative talk about AI and how it's going to, crater our economy and Elon's betting that it's going to like triple our GDP or whatever he just said like yesterday, within 3 years or something. I just think about there's always a balance on the whole, right? And I think for us as leaders in companies and helping folks out there in the world is to look for those positives and to look for the opportunity and the optimism in the thing and look at it and go, this old paradigm isn't true anymore, but look at all these other things that are now possible, right? And that's our job, is to help steer that conversation with everybody that we interact with. I just think you have to stay positive, because there will be good things that come out of this ultimately.
You brought up innovation, and that's something I want to double back on, because Caroline, you brought it up earlier when you talked about brand story, is like, what's your innovation? And I think that to define that well, it means doing something different, but it doesn't mean reinventing the wheel totally, right?
I mean, there has to be a bridge, I think, unless you want to spend massive amounts of capital in educating about innovation. Especially when it comes to product-based, right? There has to be a quick bridge between something somebody already knows and then this new piece, this new paradigm, this new reality, this new product that changes some piece of that already known product. Yes.
Right. So and the innovation could just be, hey, how this thing works. We've done it totally better. It's not like we're totally creating a whole new category.
Yeah. I think when it comes to products, innovation comes down to who made it, how it's made, and how it's delivered. Ultimately, those are kind of the three defensible areas when it comes to products. And there's a lot of variation underneath each one of those. But yeah, it comes down to those three.
Are there any brands that you feel like right now are innovating well?
Give me a category.
Protein popcorn was a thing, Caroline. That's new.
Yeah,
There's
protein popcorn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I love popcorn and I love protein. That's a great.
Right.
And then the Spanx woman, Sarah Blakely, does the high heels. I don't know what I think of them, but with sneaker high heels.
Oh, fair. Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's trend-based innovation, which are quick ways to market. And then there's more like longevity-based innovation that we'll see in some things like consumable tech or that sort of thing, like wearable tech. And that's a lot different. But John, really great example with cloud popcorn, just adding protein plus popcorn. That is, when it comes to CPG food and beverage products, the easiest way to innovate is to combine two things. So somebody already knows, popcorn, and add something into it that doesn't previously exist within that category or isn't expected within that product line.
Caroline, we talked a lot about the marketing side, but you mentioned the 3 Ps there, right? Of how the thing is made, or the 3 pillars of like how the thing is made. One of those pillars. Have you seen anything interesting about CPG or otherwise of products that are getting made differently?
Good question.
Caroline, you have really good, I've got these 3 things. When you came on before, you had a couple that I was like, man, I don't know if you just are really good at coming up with them on the spot, or you've really put a lot of thought into them. I'm guessing you put a lot of thought into them, but I love that you're like, I took notes. What did you say? Who made it, how it's made, and how it's delivered. Anyway.
Yeah. That one's interesting because that one's been with me for a while. But yeah, my brain kind of works as that system level, I organize into systems. Sam, to answer your question, how it's made, look at the iPhone, right? That totally changed how things were made and delivered. When it comes to food and beverage or skincare, there is this interesting product that I just came across when it comes to foundation. So it mixes your foundation based on you scan your skin and it mixes your foundation for you at home so that it's an exact match. That's a change in how the foundation is made. And it's also a change in how it's delivered. So it's a defensible new innovation. Can't remember the brand's name.
It's like getting paint, but
yeah.
Now you're getting it for your foundation. That's like taking a technology and then applying it to that product,
Right.
which is taking two things that were not normally together, technology and a product, and then mixing it together. So it could be the same, not just taking two products, but taking something that people already know, like, you know, I happen to go get my paint and match it to whatever. Now you're like doing it for foundation. That's a really smart idea. Yeah.
That's
Really
really
smart.
interesting. I don't know if this counts, but like Gooder, the sunglasses, it's like Ray-Bans, but plastic. You know, I'm sure they're making it some way that the quality still looks really good and they're selling a bajillion of them. But they're not made, I imagine, the same way all the other stuff is made. There's also these like Lomi and these like composting things at home, like different ways of doing stuff. The foundation one's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's kind of, I mean, I was thinking about this when we were talking about AI. There's two, if brands were coming to me, there's two areas that I would look for to make, to see investability. One is I want to invest in more human-based innovation. So for example, personal brands, community, that sort of thing. How do I invest in more human-based innovation within products and within brands? And then I also am always looking for physical innovation. So do they have an integrated supply chain? Do they own manufacturing? I think that's going to become increasingly more important as kind of the products and the categories continue to grow, because it opens up so much more potential from a revenue standpoint. Kind of off topic, but just was thinking about that.
Do you feel like there are, when we double back on discoverability, do you feel like there is a specific model that people can run right now that is really working, that they could lean into, that whether it's counterintuitive or not, versus maybe what they think? And by the way, it's not easy to get into Target, but I did make it sound really easy. But how many of us have heard of a brand, or just raise your hand, how many of us know a brand or have heard of a brand where they got into Target and or Walmart and it actually hurt their business?
Yeah, I do.
I know we worked with someone who, because they got put in the wrong spot or whatever, and then they didn't sell, and then that hurt them and they got dinged, and now they were sitting on all this products. So like, anyway, is there a model that's really working for people that people could emulate and start to do? And then what's the expectation? What should they expect from a timeline perspective of, like, you know, or do they change expectations because of that? And maybe they can get where they want to go and it's just a different time frame, or maybe they change where they want to go because it's not revenue based anymore.
If we're starting from idea to market, I think that there's three kind of, I love my frameworks, but
I told you they're good,
that tend to work really well. One is when it comes to discoverability quickly. The one is that I've already mentioned is celebrity based, or somebody who already has an audience who builds a product attached to that audience, right? Super simple way to get discoverability very, very quickly. The second is actually keyword based. So you look for uptrending keywords and you build a product line based on that uptrending keyword. Works really well for Amazon, works really well for organic, and it works really well for TikTok Shop. And the way to market with that is typically simplify the product, build something that's retention based attached to it, so subscription, and then basically do paid ads on it and build through organic and Amazon, and D2C focused first. I think the tertiary model, which is more applicable to things like food brands and beverage brands, is to create a base SKU that's in a singular category and then create flavor variants based on that base SKU. Then what you do is you build out more of an omni-channel retail approach. So you start with independents that's usually more physical. So you're starting more at farmers market level, you're starting more at a local level, but the key is to have a base SKU, for example, a popcorn, and then have these flavor variants that you build out over time. So you can own seasonality. So you can add seasonal variants. And then you can also use partner variants. So for example, I just saw a cracker brand, I think Firehook, did a collaboration with Graza olive oil. That's a really quick way to increase revenue, both from D2C, but also, and discoverability on retail and D2C. So those are the three models that I'm seeing right now in going to market that are working the best.
And I love that collab thing.
Yeah.
I'm super curious, Michael. I wanted to ask Caroline and John both, and you too, Michael, if you've seen this. Like, we're talking about discoverability. How about further upstream in validation of product or idea? You know, we talked a lot about, we're heavy on AI today. Has anybody come to you to go put out tests? Like in software, in my world, we do a lot of, you know, prototyping, MVP, set up landing pages, capture demand, see if people will pay kind of thing, right? Like, I've always wondered from a product standpoint, is there a model there, especially with AI now, to go test and potentially validate product ideas in a way maybe that we haven't thought of before, that is now possible, that wasn't possible before? Just be curious to see if you've heard.
First thing that jumps to my mind, Sam, is like in the olden days, it was run Google ads for this thing that doesn't exist and then send people to a page that says, you know, "It's coming soon, give us your email." And, you know, test 10 products off each other. You could now invent a product with AI that's like pretty close to what you could actually manufacture and go run, you know, 5, 10K in meta ads and see how it performs. I hadn't thought of that. That's definitely something you could do in the age of AI, or just play around with Nano Banana, etc.
It's no different than like Kickstarter, you know, necessarily. I'm just curious now with some of the new tools, like, are there some new methods that are like just like really low cost or high speed to be able to go kind of validate? And what are those signals that show us some kind of validation, maybe, Caroline, to be willing to invest 20, 30,000 in an initial run or whatever it may be?
I'm really, really glad you're asking this question. First, I think there's two aspects. There's consumer-based testing and there's industry-based testing. The reason I'm saying this is one of the companies that I operate is a sampling program that gets brands feedback from industry experts before they go into retail or go into market or go get investment. So this is something that I've been looking at and studying for the last 2 to 3 years.
From industry experts, not just general population.
No, because consumers will tell you if they like your product. Industry experts will tell you if it's actually validated within the market and will expand within the market. When it comes to
who are those people, Caroline? Like what? Like
you guys, experts.
Oh.
Yeah, they're all vetted. You have to fill out an application, but I'd love to have you guys all join.
Okay, send it to me. I love getting.
Yeah, you get free products. You can be part of focus groups, be paid for surveys, lots of things. I'm really, really selling myself on this call today, guys.
This is what it's about. You guys get a chance to sell.
One of the things I think that increases speed to market from a consumer standpoint is actually Lovable's integration recently with Shopify. Have you guys seen this? Really, really cool.
Oh, really?
So,
okay, interesting.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know what Lovable is basically an AI website and app generation tool that they've just integrated with Shopify's backend. So what that does is, John, that changes the entire strategy of running Google ads or meta ads, because now you have a really simple, you could build this out in 1 to 2 weeks to essentially test the market demand. What I'm always looking for from those types of analysis is conversion, obviously. And then ultimately what I'm looking for from industry expert feedback is retention. One of the questions that I ask on an industry level is, how likely are you to repurchase this product? How likely are you to purchase this product based on packaging or based on the product itself? I always want to look at over 60% repurchase rate to increase, to build a sustainable high velocity product within retail ultimately. So kind of an interesting topic for us to touch on.
Agentic commerce is going to be fascinating to watch. I feel like I was very, very early in using ChatGPT to like find stuff to buy. And now they've made it a product and they've integrated with a lot of things. And now Amazon's saying they're shutting down links from ChatGPT. I don't know how they're going to do that exactly. But boy, does our whole world change if you just talk to your friend like in her and ask, you know, what kind of sneakers should I buy?
Well, that also is a productivity thing, even though it's a human activity. Like when I talked about the Industrial Revolution taking over jobs, are there jobs that humans should not be doing that they are? Like if you're just now inputting data, I think humans are capable of a lot of great things. Oftentimes, maybe they're in a situation where they've never been told that they could do that, or they just don't believe it, or they've not been exposed to certain things that they maybe are capable of doing. So they settle for, I'm going to do this thing, or maybe it's just a survival thing. Like I just need to make money. But if you're just inputting data in a computer, I don't know if anyone still types like this. I think my dad does. But I think at this point it's probably, he's 70, so it's over. He's going to type with 4 fingers or 2 fingers for the rest of his life. But when you are, I'm trying to bring it back to I think it was the discoverability piece. Actually, I don't even know where I was going with that. I was just making fun of my dad, and so I totally got
Like,
lost.
I thought it was interesting. You said, okay, I'm not on TikTok, right? My
Yes.
question is, do you need to be to get the benefits of that low price that Caroline mentioned, right? So, for example, right? So agentic shopping.
That's what we were talking about, man.
It's going to be looking at these channels across. Now, Amazon's an interesting player in this because they're really tight on having the lowest price, right? You mentioned Walmart having lower price on mason jars. That means whoever's selling mason jars on Amazon doesn't have the buy box, right?
In
Or the buy
store,
box.
just to be clear. But also, I don't think that SKU was even being sold on Amazon. So there, that
fair,
would be.
But it's a good example of like,
Yeah.
okay, you now have a much more diverse channel strategy from a pricing standpoint, discoverability standpoint, and you may not need a TikTok profile, Michael, to be able to benefit from this if your agent has a connection to it. And so it might have to sign you up and create one for you to get the purchase, but like
I don't have to actually be on it.
Correct. So I think that's a really, when you said that, I was like, man, you probably don't have to be on it just to actually like get the product longer term. Yeah.
Caroline, it's actually really interesting that AIO, so AI optimization, is like kind of the next generation, I think, as we move into 2026 of discoverability when it comes to search and organic. And they're pulling, especially with, if you guys have seen the AI browsers, like at Cosmos, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Right.
Atlas, yeah.
That is the next level of agentic commerce, I think. But TikTok Shop still does not connect into those types of platforms yet. Right. So Michael still couldn't probably get the discounts on TikTok Shop. And if they do connect into the agentic commerce, AIO, I don't think that the discount and the promotional strategy would be there anymore, because the quantity of views would be higher.
Totally right, Caroline. And John, you mentioned it. Amazon has literally cut it off, which is why it was so interesting that the Anthropic executive was at Unbox. I still haven't figured out what that relationship was, because there was literally a kerfuffle about that like a few days prior. But I think like not getting the price is super interesting. The other aspect that it really comes down to like the competition of like, where does this go? What does Amazon do to counteract all of a sudden 15% of Walmart's referral traffic coming from ChatGPT, right? Like, because you're still the front door to the internet in a lot of ways. And if OpenAI is starting to steal some of that share, I still think like, I'm probably not going to get off of my Chrome browser, because Chrome's going to catch up like pretty quickly. Like I think some of the AI browsers are interesting, but they really don't have an advantage over Microsoft or Google, like longer term. Like, I just don't think it's defensible necessarily. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Caroline, it's going to happen. Like they're going to interface somehow, some way. The other term I've heard is like generative engine optimization.
Yeah, GEO is what I've heard, but AIO is interesting too.
From a discovery standpoint, though, what this means is it's so much more important to have your structure and your content, and your metadata right across any potential property, right? There's probably entire services dedicated to doing this and just populating it. And like why the metadata on Amazon over the last year has been so important, because Rufus is now like directly referencing that metadata and what you've got in those attribute fields. It's going to be so important to be able to do that at scale across all these different properties, so that you at least have a chance to be discoverable. And I think that's a really, really important things for brands to get right here over the next year, is to make sure you are at least present with the proper content. We always make this pitch, Michael, right? Like, even if you're not owning your listings on Amazon, somebody is, and people are reading it, and you should own it. And I think that's going to be true en masse across like way more properties than maybe we even imagined before.
So it sounds like we need to start a PIM, product information management tool, right?
That is all GEO or AIO.
This has always been a huge problem though, right? Like even all of the feed companies out there, it is very difficult to get right.
Yeah.
I think any brand you talk to struggles with this, and nobody's ever really cracked this. And now it's moving a lot faster. And the integrations are changing. You almost have to have like a dev background to be able to ensure you're integrated with the Shopify connector for OpenAI or whatever it be. They're going to make it easier. It's good that barrier is going to come down. But I think that's what I'm really looking for next too, is that element of it, is like, how do you control this, across, a lot of different locations.
I think you bring up a great point. I was at an investor dinner and I think I'm just maybe really outing my age, but I got dogged on by some people because I said that adoption of something like ChatGPT to shop or using like agentic commerce, I thought was less likely to happen. And they were like, oh, it's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you didn't let me like finish what I'm saying. I think you said, I'm like, Sam, I'm not going to get out of my Chrome browser. Who has a better opportunity to actually implement that and use? People with a greater user base. So someone like Amazon is going to find a way to make that better. Maybe it's with a Rufus or whatever. They're even starting to pull stuff off of other websites and take you there. So I think Amazon or a Google has a better likelihood to leverage agentic commerce than everyone changing tools. And I'm not saying that that's not possible. Like, we weren't using Google like we were, 20 years ago, but also the search engine was still newer, and like GEO doesn't necessarily change. It's a different engine. So I think those bigger companies have a greater likelihood to adopt that technology or buy even and incorporate it into what they're doing. And then it will be adopted. I just don't think you're going to get every demographic to totally move to a new service or software, even if they are playing around with it. But to get that to be fully adopted, that feels like a really big lift to me. I think everyone just thought I was old.
Yeah, yes,
they were older
no.
than me, I think, in some case. So
yes and no, though, like, because the form that this gets delivered in will continue to get simplified, and I really am a believer that the best UI UX design will feel like you're not really even using AI in a way. It'll be much more of an interaction that that feels really natural. You already kind of see this in chat for research and otherwise. Like, it's a pretty natural conversation. I actually think the technological barrier for these types of AI tools is a lower adoption barrier than many of the things that we've seen in the last couple of decades.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it's because it's natural language, right? It's typing, it's speech, it's thought. And the reasoning is so good, it can make leaps where you don't have to be a prompt engineer anymore to get value out of LLMs, right? We've seen how fast that acceleration is. Like, I think this is super interesting because the whole race right now, if you guys have been kind of tracking like Google versus Microsoft versus OpenAI versus Anthropic, is Google was playing a very long game of locking in their servers, right? And having that hardware backbone to be able to accelerate. And they just leaped ahead in some big ways. And OpenAI and Anthropic are both now pondering a public offering because of this. And so OpenAI is trying to become your door to everything you do, right? This is where I think Amazon has, like, these are serious conversations internally for them, because if their traffic gets metered by, Google in the past was true, like there was a form of that, but Amazon could still advertise, and Amazon still had an SEO precedent. And now you're facing a very similar but a new fraction where the question becomes, where does the consumer start their journey, and how much can they accomplish from that single origin point?
Well, if Amazon's cutting off these GEOs or AIOs, then they're not even a part of that conversation there.
So
and like, they would have to have an answer for that.
Their bet is that their selection, back to the good old flywheel diagram, right? Their selection is still the competitive advantage to drive traffic, to attract buyers. But I think you have a very interesting competition happening over the next couple, months and years, where Amazon really has to grapple with, how do we continue to grow traffic? Now, demand, like, their DSP is a big element of this. They're buying properties, like, doing deals with the NFL to get eyeballs and like have connected TV and do these things. I think you're going to see Amazon do a couple things. One, buy more media properties. They have to buy more eyeballs ultimately to have inroads to Amazon to lock in as your shopping experience, right? Two, I do think they're going to soften on this stance. I really do.
They're going to have to.
I don't see how they don't. And I am nobody and I have no inside information and like take it for what it's worth. But like, sure. I don't see how they don't soften on this because ultimately they can still win this SEO, GEO game because of the authority of the content that they have if they're willing to play in a little bit broader garden, right? Like if they're willing to open those walls a bit. I don't think they're going to maintain that longer term. GPT has like 1 billion users, billion weekly users. There are 350 million Prime users. The numbers are hard to ignore, right? If that's where everybody starts their journey and they can accomplish things that they weren't able to accomplish before, right from that origin point.
Caroline, were you going to say something? Because you got like a, I don't know, kind of look on your face.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that Amazon is kind of cracking down on ChatGPT discoverability, if that's how I'm understanding it correctly, because I think ultimately where their moat lies is in their distribution network, their fulfillment network. So it seems like a small piece to really hone in on when
it's the ads piece, Caroline.
It's the ad piece.
Because all of that revenue is so critical to them that they have to maintain traffic into their ad networks to be profitable. Like FBA is not necessarily a huge profit center for them, but it is a distinct vertical advantage for them to be able to go be in these marketplaces like internationally, like very.
But I actually agree. I agree a lot with Caroline that one of the big moats and that the reason why Shopify divested their fulfillment business, why anyone has not been able to tackle them is they use AI in their warehouses, is their distribution, which is why people can do MCF, which is why people can do Buy with Prime. So I'm not negating the ad side, and trust me, I love,
no, but case in point, Michael, right? Amazon comes out last year and says, okay, we're going to play nicely with Shopify now, and we'll do the fulfillment. If Shopify now takes the majority of shopping traffic away because they are integrating with ChatGPT, Amazon now lost all of those eyeballs. Think of all the ad spend that you run for your clients, right? Like if the inventory and demand drops, if that supply drops, like they have a serious business model problem, like very, very quickly.
I'm wondering of what a world looks like in 5-10 years if in the 30% chance websites start to be an old school thing we don't really go to type in Amazon.com anymore. Like what happens when these models get so good, these LLMs get so good, they're so alive and with us and in voice and whatever, Oculus and God knows what in 5-10 years, which again will fly by, where it's like the idea of, an Amazon back in 2025 wanted us to like go to this site and then look at through these ads and browse these gifts for my nephew. But actually no one does that in 2035. They just like, they wake up and discovery is not even Instagram anymore. It's like, like ChatGPT is playing around with that super rudimentary pulse thing now, where it's like, hey, good morning, John. Like, by the way, your nephew's birthday's coming up. We thought, we heard your brother texted you last week. You like this and that. What do you think of this gift? Like, click here or just tell me and I'll order it and make sure it gets there.
Haven't you seen that Lil Wayne ad with Alexa? Like that made me feel like what they're trying to do is like Alexa turning into agentic commerce, where it was like, hey, it's your nephew's birthday party. I don't think your theme for the birthday party, he's going to be 3. I don't think these private dancers are a good idea.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah,
do you want me to cancel? And he's like, reschedule the dancers. Don't cancel, but reschedule.
Right. And whether it's the talking to your Alexa in your kitchen or typing or glasses or who knows what, like hearing this conversation, I think this is all really apt and fascinating. Also, what's going to happen like month over month, year over year, the next few years. But I don't know, like I just heard someone breezily say this recently, like, no one in tech goes to Google anymore, but like even young people and the rest of America are still going to Google. Yeah. What if that does spread? What if people stop going to Google? They're not yet. Like Google's numbers are fine. What if they stop going to Amazon.com or the Amazon application on your phone? What if everything just starts coming from this one place? You hear Sam Altman talk for 45 minutes and you definitely can envision it. And you can see how they can make it work, where it really knows you personally. It's got all the bases covered and they're already building all the things from browsers to, integrations to God knows what, science products to make this all ubiquitous. Of course, you can't predict it. So it's at once like fascinating to talk about and useless to talk about. But in 10 years, I think so many unknown unknowns will happen that a lot of these things will just be like moot.
It's probably not even helpful to even
And-
try and guess.
But I could totally see, John, as you were saying that, is like a very obvious bridge, I think, could be like an embedded experience, right? Where you are chatting, you're referencing something, you want to research something, see something or otherwise, and GPT literally just delivers the HTML in an embedded experience from a site. Websites
Yes.
going away, like you still own your property and but you're now designing it for that experience as opposed to somebody navigating directly to you, right? Like,
Yeah, maybe I was thinking it's right. Maybe there's some kind of hook API-ish type thing in 10 years where it's like, you know, hey, we are this luxury, Patek Philippe or whatever. Like if someone asks about us and you want to design a micro website-ish thing and embed it in the chat, it's got to use this type of, you can't show us really cheaply or whatever. Who knows? Or maybe all these brands will lose control. Yeah, it's going to be so fascinating. Just thinking back about Caroline was saying earlier about, and you were saying about testing and how easy it might be to spin up brands. I mean, 3 years ago, you could not make your own Facebook video ads. Like you could try, but you probably had to hire someone. Now you can. Um, 10 years ago, starting your own brand out of your house was really freaking hard. Now it's really common. Yeah, what happens when you can just make you out with drinks with your friend, you come up with an idea for a sneaker, high heel, or whatever it may be, and you've got it up and running the next week. You got ads and you get orders and you fulfill it. It's so many things are gonna change.
You guys, I knew you guys were going to do a great job and that this is going to be a great conversation. Well, I think we could probably keep going. I've probably taken enough of your time today. Can you all I want you all to, whatever one thing you want to plug it, tell people where you want them to go and what you want them to do so they can find out more about what you're doing, about what's important to you. Caroline, can you kick us off?
Sure. Again, my name is Caroline Grace. I build, grow, and invest in product-based businesses, and I operate a couple of different companies that do that in very niche ways, which are my hypotheses of how to grow the next generation of brands. Feel free to reach out via LinkedIn, Caroline Grace. And yeah, I'm excited about the questions. This is an awesome, awesome conversation. So thank you so much, Michael. I think two takeaways. I'm going to invest more in human-based innovation, right? Personal brands, et cetera. And then also, I think, again, the speed to market is going to increase for new products, but still the bottleneck becomes manufacturing. And so I'm going to start looking for innovation on more of the manufacturing and the product information management side, because the speed and the discoverability pieces, I think, from this conversation are about to increase exponentially.
Love it. Sam.
Yeah. Sam Hager from MixShift. If you get to this point and you haven't been through the podcast, but Michael, for us, maybe this is a clip, right?
Yeah, there you go.
For us, I think specifically for MixShift, one of the things we're thinking about a lot right now is how do you get good quality data to these AI properties like LLMs and, use it in Gemini and Google Sheets, because there's still a little bit of a gap of having raw data sent to these without all that understanding and context about what it's looking at. So, for Amazon operators and e-commerce operators that are really trying to figure out how to leverage this, I would encourage you to think about two things. One, how do you own your data? How do you get it to these things to be able to kind of unleash things that weren't possible before? And number two, what is the quality or the transformation of that data so that when it gets there, there's already context and it's already in a way that it's useful, meaning you're not just sending raw data to these things. For us, one of the pet projects that Todd's working on, my co-founder, is forecasting. He built a tops-down Amazon revenue forecast. He's a guy that built the forecasting engine for the 1P side of Amazon internally while he was there. So he understands it really intimately. And it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Like, your revenue is built on seasonality, the underlying trend, and ad spend. And you can build a forecast in 2 minutes based on those three factors if you know how to do it with the math. We have a template for it. We'll share it, with anybody for free. check it out. But I think with that really quality understanding of how your business operates and the levers that occur, and if you own your data, you're going to be able to like build things that were not possible before. I think that's a really important initiative as people are going forward into kind of this, unknown space of how do we leverage AI and agentic workflows and these different things to amplify our business. And I think it really starts with a really good and clear data understanding and strategy for your company.
Where should people go to find you?
MixShift.io is the primary, and then LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Hit us up. Happy to help in any way we can.
John Gargiulo. See, I remember.
Wow. You did remember it. Awesome. Yeah, great being with you all. This has been super fun. Airpost.ai. If you're a brand spending 500K or more a month on Meta, TikTok, etc., direct to consumer, typically we're pretty great at, and you're looking to modernize your ad stack and leverage AI in a way that's not uncanny or creepy or weird and actually works. We're your people, working with DoorDash, Calm, Dr. Squatch, all kinds of awesome brands to really, not when I say AI, not just talking heads at the camera. In fact, we don't even do that yet. But taking all of your footage, all of our proprietary footage that we own, over 300,000 clips that we've amassed over 6 years, as part of Ready Set, the agency that we built, and AI footage. We have a small but mighty team that does nothing but create AI video to also put into your assets and leverage as well, to just make a lot more ads a lot faster and increase performance. So yeah, Airpost, we're still new, growing really fast, and I'm on LinkedIn, just John Gargiulo, or X.
Love it. For all you people that don't know, my name is Michael Maher. I own and run an Amazon agency called Cartology. If you want to win on Amazon, just email me, michael@thinkcartology.com. A lot of people feel like they're not reaching their potential or they're not being heard by their agency. And we want you to have a totally different experience. You all have been great. Yes, I will, of course, have clips, and maybe I'll just cut up clips of those and we'll promote you all. But thank you for being here. That was the end of season 3, people. We don't have anything else. So you don't got to go home, but you got to get out of here. Until next time.